We just got a ton of new teasers when it comes to Secret of the Mimic, and the closer that we get to its release, the more concerns I have about how good this game is actually going to be, what it's going to do to the lore and the fan base in general. In this video, I will be covering all of those grounds. But right before we start, I want to give a massive thank you to the support that my channel has been getting recently. The Season 1 Analog Horror Analysis video has gotten more support than I ever thought it would. We aren't too far away from 500 subs, so if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. And yes, I am working on the next episode of Analog Horror Analysis. I know I have to finish the Reach animation series. With all that being said, let's begin. The first teaser we have doesn't have a lot to show, but it is still interesting to look at nonetheless. It's a shot of the elephant that we have seen all around this game, standing in the hallway. In the locker next to him is a Sonic the Hedgehog style mascot that I don't believe that we have seen before. The illuminated sign above him says that this is a main hallway. Now from what we've seen of the factory, this is a very large building, and this doesn't really seem, at least to me, like some grand hallway that you would usually see inside of these giant factories. So I don't really know if this is the main hallway to a specific section of the building, or if this entire factory is just built with these uncomfortable claustrophobic hallways. There are also other things that we could have pointed out in the teasers that I do think are not as important as a lot of people are trying to say, such as the bee on the ceiling and the cardboard cutout. I feel like a lot of people, when it comes to these earlier teasers, try to overcomplicate what these things are actually showing. The thing that I'm most excited for is the storyline theory that a lot of people have been having when it comes to Secret of the Mimic, and we'll get to those later in the video. The next teaser we have is a photo of an office. Now I haven't really heard anybody talk about this, but what I believe this room is a control panel for something outside of that window. Somewhat like a music studio, or an experiment chamber in a lab, where people stand outside the glass to safely control what's going on the inside. But again, this could just be a regular office within the building, but with the giant controls and the multiple monitors, and obviously the giant window in the front, this seems like some sort of control panel. And also, if you look in the bottom left corner, there is a clock saying 12 o'clock. Now we don't know if this is AM or PM, but my theory is that we are still holding on to this 12 to 6 AM classic. At first, we simply have to just go into the factory and retrieve Fazbear Entertainment property, but in classic FNAF fashion, we get locked in with animatronic monsters, or at least one of them, and it turns into a classic survive until 6 AM mode. The next teaser is actually my favorite out of the four, for a few specific reasons. It's what looks to be a very old school style animatronic performance, with an alligator and a hippo. Where have we seen those before? And what looks to be frogs on the ground. These things obviously have to be a callback to Happy Frog, especially with the yellow ball antenna on the top of their heads. When it comes to the hippo and the alligator, I love the theory that we have so far. A lot of people look at the alligator and immediately think of Monty, and while no, they might not be fully wrong, a lot of them just think of security breach and think about Steel Wool just going off of what their game made. But what a lot of people don't know is that Monty isn't the first alligator we ever saw. Within a Five Nights at Freddy's 3 Happiest Day minigame, we see a child wearing an alligator mask. This game came out in 2015, and this minigame takes place within the mid-80s. With this in mind, people have come to this conclusion. Now, this building is not owned by Fazbear Entertainment, which means these animatronics were not built by Fazbear Entertainment. These animatronics were built by Edwin Murray. Although yes, he is a contractor for Fazbear Entertainment, Fazbear Entertainment does not own the animatronics that he's made for personal use. So the whole idea is that Fazbear Entertainment took the ideas of Edwin Murray and stole them from him. After he voiced his concerns to Fazbear Entertainment, he suspiciously went missing. It's not a new thing for Fazbear Entertainment to cover up deaths when it comes to their company, and they definitely fight dirty. I personally love this idea when it comes to the storyline. It's not sci-fi, it's not too unrealistic, it's perfectly something that could definitely happen in the real world. And to further back up the point, what's standing next to him is a purple hippo, which we have already seen multiple times within the Mediocre Melodies, and it would finally be really good for the whole fandom to see where the hell the Mediocre Melodies really came from. After what, 8 years since Pizzeria Simulator came out and they were introduced? The last screenshot, although very cool visually, is probably my least favorite, for reasons I'll get to. It's a shot of the old style Music Man that we saw in the first gameplay trailer, hanging from the ceiling. When it came to the sci-fi aspect of Five Nights at Freddy's, I never really minded it too much, other than the fact that they tried to make a science to the children possessing the animatronics. But other than that, I never really cared. So having a giant Music Man and security breach really never really bothered me, because it did take place in the future and they probably would build something like that. What I don't like is that this is most likely taking place within 1979, like the date that we saw in the trailer. What is the purpose of A, making this an original character, and B, having it be so giant even though this is taking place in 1979? They didn't build stuff like that back then. There's no real apparent reason to put him in the game. You definitely could have just kept him within FNAF Pizzeria Simulator and Security Breach. You didn't have to add him here, and especially if you were going to make him an original character and put him in this game, why make him giant? It just seems overkill and kind of takes me out of the immersion. Because if you think about it, it doesn't really make sense to, in 1979, have giant industrial-sized factories and giant animatronics that can crawl around and have their own free will. And then in 1983, just have a tiny little diner with 2 animatronics where a little kid gets accidentally killed by a bully. It would make a lot more sense if the very beginning of the FNAF storyline started with Evan getting his head crushed, because that's a realistic thing happening in a tiny little poor diner in the very beginning of Fazbear Entertainment. And then decades and decades and decades later, it is still going on and futuristic animatronics like DJ Music Man are walking around. It just worries me sometimes, because there's no question that Scott Cawthon's original storyline was the best. Phase 1, FNAF 1 through UCN, and that was it. And then Steelwool came around, and although their storyline was good and we were happy with where it was, we weren't really messing with the sci-fi part of it that much. It wasn't very scary, it wasn't very impactful, but it was fun to watch. But now that they're going all the way back and making a new beginning to the FNAF storyline, I don't know how I feel about that. But again, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm no expert, I just have my own opinions on it. I just wanted to go over where the state of FNAF is right now, and I most likely will be making updates when it comes to the FNAF movie pretty soon, if there is any updates on the movie itself. I was doing that all the time when it came to the FNAF movie news about a year ago, but I've kind of been slacking when it came to the news about the new movie recently. But again, that was just my take on it. You tell me what you think in the comments below. Again, thank you for the massive support that my channel has been getting, and if you did enjoy the video, please consider subscribing and watching my other videos. The finale of the Reach animation tapes for Analog Horror Analysis will be coming out soon. I'm working very hard on it, and I have a lot more ideas for future episodes. Despite my attitudes on Secret of the Mimic at the end of the video, I do have high hopes for the game. It just kind of makes me worried for them to go back and remake a new beginning to the storyline. Again, you tell me what you think in the comments below. That's just my opinion, and thank you for watching.